Welcome back to Mystic Revolution. I am Susana Dumett, and I am here with Wendy R. Wolf. And this is the show where we talk about all things mystic and mystical, things that relate to everyday mysticism and magic.
Welcome to Mystic Revolution. Join Susana and Wendy for insightful conversations and guided meditations.
Today's topic, we're going to dive deeper into discernment. We talked about that a little bit last episode, but we're going to go deeper in today. Before we do that, let's just take a moment and do a little coming together, a little meditation to get us grounded and centered. So I invite you to close your eyes and take a nice deep breath in. And exhale. And allow yourself to do that again and really tune into how that breath feels in your body. With every breath in and every breath out, you can feel yourself settling into yourself. Maybe you can even feel the weight of your body in your chair. The weight of your body if you're lying down and listening to us. And in that weightedness, let it draw you into your heart, into your core, into the center of your soul, into the center of your own personal power. Knowing that you are in the right place. If you consider yourself a mystic, if you're curious about mysticism, about psychic development, about energy, you're in absolutely the right place, and you are so welcome. So let's take another nice deep breath in and exhale. And with that, let's open our eyes and turn the conversation back into the topic of discernment. One of the things that we spoke to in our last episode was that the idea of playing with or tuning and experimenting with mystic capabilities, with your soul senses, really is a soul science. Wendy, can you talk a little bit more about that?
In science, we recognize that what we perceive is important and that there's different perspectives to things. In science, we notice that it helps to own that what we see is real, what we hear is real. It helps to discern and test what is really going on under different conditions or whatever. And it all comes down to letting go of theories. Like there are theories, there's scientific theories, but can we let them go and see what actually happens in our direct experience from here? So it's kind of being open to the inquiry of being here now with and seeing what happens.
Yes. Yeah, being here now with and noticing and allowing. I mean, if we were in a clinical laboratory, we would be taking notes on the different things that we noticed, right? And whatever it is we were experimenting with. We can do the same with our own inner capabilities, with our mystic abilities. And this helps us to fine tune, get that fine point or that edge of, I like to call it like a real edge of discernment.
Yes.
That helps you distinguish between what is yours and what is someone else's, that helps you be able to, in any given situation, own your own strength and power, but also perceive the different perspectives on that same thing while still
Yeah.
holding your own strength, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just because the chief scientist person, you know, from this perspective is noticing something, it doesn't mean from my perspective, it doesn't invalidate, oh, I see the opposite. I see something different. You're seeing blue, I'm seeing red. What's going on?
Right.
Same thing, like just because somebody's a big, famous psychic or, big in some organization or something, it doesn't mean that my perception isn't real.
Right. In fact, your perception might be the final clue that helps tie it all together. And, I kind of like to think about, there's the science analogy, but also we're detectives.
Yes.
Right? And we're gathering information and we're piecing it together. And sometimes you get like just a full on hit of this is true, this is right, this is what I need to stand with. But other times it's smaller hits, smaller bits of information that unless you have discernment to see and sort of play with, you might be missing something really important.
Yeah. And you've said in my presence, Susan, an image I really like, which is the jigsaw puzzle image. We all bring a piece of the puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really very, very valuable to get together with other perceivers, inner perceivers that we trust, to see like, I've been noticing this. Oh yeah, that fits with that. That makes sense. Now I see the whole picture.
Right. Because, and I know you said this, right? We often are not even aware of all the layers of story or of pictures that we're perceiving through, that we alone are perceiving through, but are also like true about a certain thing, a certain place, whatever our focus is that we're reading or looking at. And so when you practice that discernment, you're able to see the different layers, different parts and pieces to come to that sort of core conclusion, whatever that is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very exciting. So should I talk about the first thing I was
Please go ahead. Please.
And it's exactly this. It's like, can I become conscious about what I'm not conscious about? And I believe that's what the spiritual path is in a way. That's what psychic opening is in a way. That's what mystic development is. It's making the unconscious conscious. And that can look like being willing to perceive more and more clearly, physically and spiritually. It can look like opening and utilizing our soul senses in comfortable ways. I make a distinction from our psychic consciousness, like pure spiritual energy information, and our intuition, more the body wisdom and experience, but whatever. Owning our perceptions and possibilities, owning our choices and our actions from the inside out. It can also look like shadow integration, which is so important, right? Like, I don't even know this about myself. I can't allow myself to perceive this in myself. Making it conscious. Oh, look, that is mine. It looked like my partner's, log in his eye, but it's also a log in my eye. What a concept. So these kinds of things, from my perspective, we're constantly in the continual process of making the unconscious conscious. And that, I'll just say, that really changes. That's owning discernment. And it's owning how my life goes as well. It's not just some airy-fairy, this is some mystical thing I see. It's like, then my life becomes different because the things that happen inform me. So it goes around that Carl Jung said this, but he didn't. But it's a really good quote that says, until you make the unconscious conscious, it'll direct your life and you'll call it fate.
Mhm.
Like all these things are happening and it's just happening to me until I start to get more conscious. And then I realize, oh, I'm putting these things here. I'm related to this. This makes sense. I'm attracting this. So that's kind of what I want to start this conversation with, is making unconscious conscious. What do you notice, Susan, about that?
Yeah, well, I mean, we touched upon it a little in the previous episode about how when we aren't conscious of the unconscious, um, it shapes our experience. We experience, we sense, we see through, let's take, for instance, a shadow element,
Mhm.
right? And that dictates what our life is. I can speak from my own experience of that in terms of beliefs, subconscious beliefs and energy that I was holding that really clouded and inhibited myself from
Yeah.
having a full experience. And it wasn't until I learned how to get behind, go down into that shadow or go down into my subconscious where I could see what was really true there. And so we talked about like what is true for us. So there's the truth of me like experiencing you and having this experience.
Yeah.
But it also might be true that there is something that's subconscious that is also impacting my experience. And I think a good indication of that, and I'll just speak again from my own experience, is if you keep having the same not so great experience time and time again in different people, with different people in different scenarios, there's something in your subconscious that is impacting how you're seeing and sensing what's going on, what you're doing and what's going on. Would you say that's true?
Yeah, that's my experience. And then it's not just that I'm sensing, it's I'm creating it too. It just keeps
Yeah,
happening.
creating it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, we want to be careful with because obviously bad things happen. And this isn't to say you're absolutely solely responsible for all the terrible things that have happened to you. This is not that at all. It's you actually can have a little bit more control or mastery over what you are experiencing when you have this ability to make the unconscious conscious.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And to start to shift what we experience.
Yes, absolutely.
And one way just while we're talking about this, one way I talk about what I do is to help people, and you do too. We can talk mystic, we can talk psychic. There's lots of words: energy, mastery. One thing I say is that I help people go below everyday consciousness.
Yeah.
To perceive, choose, and act on the inside.
Yeah.
First.
Mm-hmm.
It's very powerful.
It is.
But it can take a minute, because all this stuff that we're talking about, as you said in the last time, is related to identity, and that doesn't change in a minute usually.
No, and in our identities, we develop patterns and habits. Again, sometimes unconscious, often unconscious, that we do automatically. We just do it automatically. And so the idea is that we can go in and we can start tending to these things in very specific ways, tuning into what is the truth on the inside, and tend to any wounded parts, tend to any fear, and help open up then to the greater truth of our soul that often gets that can get a little bit turned down or numbed out, as the case may be. Yeah.
Yeah. So just in service of what this looks like, what this sound like, we've kind of done a bunch of overview, I feel like. And so I'm just going to get some nuts and boltsy.
Good.
And just run down some lists, and we can talk about it a little or a lot. And so the first thing that I feel like is so important, we've talked about this, but I'm just going to say these things are very important, is to make separations, to make distinctions between what's mine and what's yours. And
Yep.
and it's so not done, especially like you could just take, for example, the disturbance that a lot of empaths experience. It's like, what part of when I was, before I do what I do now, I was so disturbed because I didn't even know what was my feelings and what were their feelings.
Yes.
I had no idea. So anyway, there's that. Then is it physical information or spiritual information? Is it body information or is it energy information? Like, it sounds so simple, but it's not simple.
No.
It really takes something to start to distinguish between these things. And for me, a very important distinction is, am I in alignment with my source? Am I in alignment with my experience of the divine? Am I in alignment? Am I on my own path? And what is the perception from there, as opposed to what's the perception when I'm off my path?
Right. The perception of when you're off your path. I think that's that distinction is important. I wanted to add in one more factor. Is it my body? Is it energy? Is it my spirit? Is it the analytical, critical mind? Is it that? Right? And how do we, when you can distinguish between those things, then you can get greater clarity then on what is right and true for you. Yeah.
And there's so many parts of our soul system that it can be.
Right.
And we can talk about it now or later. But it could really get broken down. So why don't we talk about that later?
Okay.
And the next thing I want to talk about is, it's also distinctions. It's also separations. Is who, what, where, why, how, when is communicating? What is communicating? Is it energy? Is it spirit, like all that is, or some particular spirit? Is it a person? Is it a part of the body? Is it a part of the soul? Like, there's so many ways. Like, where's this communication coming from?
Yes.
So, for example, if I'm hearing is one to really watch, I believe. If I'm hearing voices, who is talking? Is it the dog next door? Is it, is it God? Is it, right? Like, who is talking? Is it my own self-talk? Is it your self-talk that I'm listening to while I'm talking to you?
Absolutely.
In my own head. I mean, it's just crazy the amount of voices there are out there, or information sources.
And beyond, is it your self-talk or my self-talk? Is it my shadow self-talking? Is it my sort of highest and best self-talking, or your how? And to your point about, is it the neighbor's dog? I mean, hopefully if you're a mystic and you're listening, that doesn't sound crazy. Because highly sensitive people do hear the trees, hear the animals speaking to them, hear the thoughts of other people. I even, when my lack of boundaries and understanding of where I ended and others began, I mean, I would say things that other people were saying.
Yes.
Like, I would hear myself speak the words of someone else, and I would be like, wait a second.
Yes.
That's not me. And so discernment helped me to sort of sort that out. But it can be really, really confusing.
Yes. Really confusing. And I said in one of the past ones, I thought I was crazy because I had so many voices in me, all the different things. And another funny thing that happened when I was younger that now it makes perfect sense is like sometimes when I was talking to myself, seemed to be talking to myself, I was talking. And then sometimes it seemed like somebody was talking to me, like, Wendy, you might wanna, and I'd be just like, who the hell is that? Like, right? Just like, I oughta. Why am I not saying I oughta? Why is this voice saying you oughta? I'm just like, what is going on? It can be a little crazy making if we don't distinguish
Right. And
where the
that
information is coming from.
where it's coming from. And that goes back to what you've talked about in the last episode about certainty. I mean, certainty comes into this, knowing your own voice, knowing your own inner voice, knowing when you are in alignment with that. And what you said, when you're out of alignment, then the clarity comes.
Yes.
Then the clarity comes. There's no guessworking. There's no crazy making.
I think it might be time for a break.
Oh, okay, great. Perfect timing. Then let's take a quick break.
Thank you, We Are Historically, for your conscious human apparel. Shop online at wearehistorically.com.
Hey friends, Susana and I want to remind you that we offer a Mystic Revolution meditation. It's the first Tuesdays at 4:30 Pacific. Please come as our guest. You can see our website for the link. And thank you for playing with us.
Raise your vibration and energize your life with specialized Fibonacci tuning forks that deepen meditations and empower self-healing. Get your vibrational sound tools for personal enhancement at energybodytuners.com.
Welcome back from the break, everyone. We are finishing up our conversation on discernment. And Wendy, I know you wanted to say something about soul perception.
Yeah, it's extraordinarily subtle. It's so subtle and it's so easy to make an impression. It's so easy to skew or get, in fact, even very experienced readers can, if they get something from the outside. There's been times it's like, I remember one time I was reading and I'm just like, I am smelling orange, right? Like, I'm smelling orange. Is that actually happening in the physical world? Did somebody spray like orange spray outside the door? Or is it happening like in my my soul senses? Like, and so that affected the reading. First I had to just figure out if it was inside or out, but still it affected the reading. And still I'm just like, there's orange here. And maybe it was helpful. Like, it turned out it was from the outside. Somebody was like opening, orange is a very powerful smell. Outside the door, they're opening an orange. But like, maybe that was the physical helping me understand the whole package I was looking at. So it's just so subtle, and it's so easily affected by other people's opinions, by what's happening around us from our past experience. And it's just so important when reading and paying attention to just keep clearing off my own stuff and what's going on around. Have you had experiences? It's just so subtle.
Well, I think, yeah, absolutely. And what you say about keep clearing, that is a practice that I know is very important in our tradition of learning to read. Because you're right. I could envision where someone might smell oranges and make that part of the reading and make it important.
Yes.
When maybe it wasn't, right? And so as we're using discernment, we notice there's a thing. If I don't feel pretty clear on something, then doing some clearing, right? And we don't have to rush through things, right? There's some information. I can take the time to discern whether or not that is relevant or not, share it or not. And even in that moment, right, of the reading, sometimes you could just be like, oh, there's an orange smell. And just set it aside. And in the case of, your reading, it sounds like maybe that wasn't necessarily relevant to what you were doing.
But I had to clear it.
You have to clear it. And this is where we get into the more refinement in the soul science, because I don't hear a lot of psychics talking about this, about how you really fine tune and get that discernment edge that I spoke to last time. It's super important, I think, especially when more and more people want validation, are coming to readers for insight. We have to be very I'm not going to say we have to. We don't have to do anything. But if you want to be a better if you want to provide potentially something that is helpful, being able to clear out that stuff is important. Yeah.
It's really helpful. So I look forward to next time talking even more about discernment. There's many more things that we're going to unfold.
Yeah.
And I look forward to seeing everybody next time.
Absolutely. And so with that, we conclude this episode of Mystic Revolution. Let's just do a quick little closeout here. Take a nice deep breath in, exhale out. Know that you have a right to your own experience in the world. Take in what felt good, what resonated, leave the rest behind. And know that you have a right to be here, to speak your truth, and to let your own soul shine. And with that, we will see you next time.
And that concludes this portion of Mystic Revolution. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to get notified of new content. And don't forget to like and share. Join the Mystic Revolution. Click on the link in the description to get more information or visit themysticrevolution.com. Another creative art production by Retro Earth Studio.
This series is really for you if you have mystic sensibilities or interests, or if you've been practicing forever. This is a place for all of us to join together